Hello everyone and welcome to Callsign Charlie Models. Andre here, and we have another inbox review with the Trumpeter 132nd F-105D Thunderchief. And this kit came out in 2004. Double check scale mix. Yep, 2004 for the D model, and then the G model came out in 2010. Now I've already built the G model, so I do know some hindrance areas of this kit already, but moving forward I do know of a couple weak areas in this kit. Like the intakes are absolutely horrible, and the main landing gear section is a little bit weak and a little bit wonky, and doesn't give you that warm and fuzzy about how it's going to support the model. So we're going to actually get into this kit, look at everything that's provided, and I do know that there are some aftermarket sets available, like the exhaust, some other parts like landing gear wells and such going on. And res kit, good news, they are in production of a 1/32 scale intake set for this model right here, so that's going to help take care of the intake issue that we have with this kit. So with this one, we have a length of 613 millimeters, a wingspan of 333 millimeters, and a total part count of 514 pieces. So we go off to the side, we have some nice pictures of the built model right here. A nice full-length engine, a gun bay, the cockpit, a radar for the nose, and then our flaps and slats are positionable on this one. We also have a quick history about the F-105D Thunderchief, also known as the Thud, and also a extensive selection of weapons or stores in this kit as well. And we flip it over to the other side, we do have two schemes to go off of with this one. We have the 44th Tactical Fighter Squadron 355th Fighter Wing, Takli Air Base, Thailand, 1970. Major Donald Kirina, I'm sorry if I butcher his last name, with the Polish glider. And then we have the other one with the 354th Tactical Fighter Squadron 355th Tactical Fighter Wing, Takli Air Base, Thailand, 1967. Colonel Jack Broughton, Alice is Joy. So we'll take a look at these. We'll get the box opened up. Let's see how packed it is with plastic. This box is very long and it really doesn't fit on the camera, but I got it just enough to fit in camera. So we'll have to take a look and see. Pull the top of the box off, and it is fairly well packed with plastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get everything set up and off to the side. Then we can start going through the instructions and decals and start moving forward with that. So give me 1 second and I'll be right back. Alright, so we're starting off with the instructions, and we have the typical Trumpeter format with the instruction booklet and a landscape format right here. And then we have the common read before assembly, decal application instructions, and also our legend of symbols right here. Then we open it up. We have our sprue callouts. Again, a lot of sprues on this. A total of 514 pieces. So there's going to be a good amount of pieces on here, and the parts are all numbered, very legible. So you will be able to come back here if you can't find a part and find that part on the sprue. Alright, so after that we're starting off with our ejection seat, getting our ejection seat all done. Then we're working on our instrument panel. It's a tri-piece with the plastic piece back here, and then we have a piece of film, and then we have a maybe a clear part, probably a clear part right here to go over the top. Then after that we're working on our cockpit tub. Let's see, yep, cockpit tub. Got a few pieces to put onto the side panels right here, and then we have a few other detail pieces going on there. Then after that we're getting the back bulkhead, our ejection seat, and the instrument panel added in. Then we're starting to work on our Gatling gun, getting all that in and getting it done. We do have an ammo can right here. When you're building this kit, I do recommend putting your weight, your nose weight in here. That way it's all nice and contained and it won't rattle around. And that's where I put my weight when I'm doing my F-105s. After that, we start the engine. We have the full length intake right here starting off. Sorry about that. And then we're just adding more detail to our engine right there. Then continuing on with the engine, we have some more detail parts to go on the engine, and then we're starting our exhaust area, getting all that done. It's in 4 parts right here. So getting all that assembled on the and then it all goes around this piece right here, and then getting that assembled in. Then we have the aft section of our burner can right there. After that, we have our refueling probe assembly, and then we're getting our gun into the fuselage along with the ammunition can and our ammo feed belts right here, which I believe are rubber belts right there. After that's all done, we're adding in our refueling probe right in there. Getting that all done, we do have the option of having it open or closed. Just if you have it closed, it does take a little bit of putty to get it to work. After that's all done, we're working on our nose landing gear doors, or nose landing gear well, and our main strut right here. It does look like we do have to have this in during this phase. It doesn't look like something that we're going to be able to attach after the build. After that's all done, we're adding in a bomb bay right there, and then we have some sidewalls to go onto the fuselage right here for our cockpit, and then we're getting all of our pre-assembled parts or sub-assemblies into the fuselage and getting the fuselage glued together right there. We also have the tail section right here that's getting glued together as well. Then moving forward, we're starting to work on our wings, getting our wings done. We have some areas for our spoilers, our slats, and our flaps. Sorry, we got something getting in the way over here. Alright, so getting all that done, you have the angle for your flaps down position, which is 15 degrees on that. And then we're getting all that done, then we're getting our 2 wing halves sandwiched together with our ailerons right there. Then we're just repeating for the other wing as well. Okay, after that's all done, we're getting our wings attached along with our aft fuselage section. Again, right here is where we start running into major issues with the intakes. There's a giant gap, at least from the one that I built. There was a giant gap in there, and luckily I was able to get the intake plugs to cover up that area. But like I said earlier, ResKit is in development of the 1/32 intakes for this kit, so we'll have to see how that goes. We're also working on our horizontal stabilizers right here, and then we're working on our vertical stabilizer and our rudder along that, and we also have the parachute jaw as well. After that's all done, we're working on our main landing gear area, and I do know that this is a very weak part of the kit. Probably the weakest part of the kit is our aft main landing gear right here. Alright, so then moving on, we have some intakes to put in, and then our nose and radar section right here, and then the door for our cannon or our Gatling gun right here, painting it chromate green on the inside if you're going to have it opened up. Then we have also this intake piece to go in right there. Then we have the nose cone latches going on, and then we're attaching in our main landing gear. Like I said, there's not much support to this landing gear at all, so like I said on my kit, I don't have the warm and fuzzy. Whenever I move it, it just wobbles and just does not feel sturdy on that. Okay, then after that's done, we are adding in our canopy. We have the option of having it open or closed. We're also adding in our HUD and a pitot tube right here, and then we have our air brakes right here. Just moving on, the pedals open up in this kit or on this jet, so that's how you can either have it in the opened or closed position right there. Alright, then moving on, we're working on our pylons and all of our ordnance to go onto this kit. We do have a lot of ordnance to go on with Shrikes, the AGM 45s, and then we have our Mark 117 bombs going on there. And then our fuel tanks going on. And then again with we have the option of Mark 117 bombs or Mark 82 bombs on this. Then our pylons are going onto the wings. Then after that's done, we have our loadout recommendations right there. So if you follow this, you should be fine and have an accurate loadout on that. Then we have a couple pieces. I'm not sure if these are decals that are supposed to go on the bottom right here, but we will have to see on that. Alright, moving forward to our color schemes. We have the 44th Tactical Fighter Squadron, 355th Tactical Fighter Wing, Takli Air Base, Thailand, 1970, Major Donald Kutya, the Polish glider right here. Again, very nice scheme on this. I like how it's black on the outside with the Polish glider right here, and we have a little bit of a tail flash to go on, and then a little symbol right here as well that I'm really a fan of. So just nice one on that. And then on the bottom side we have the other one from the 354th Tactical Fighter Squadron, the 355th Tactical Fighter Wing, Takli Air Base, Thailand, 1967, Colonel Jack Broughton, Alice's Joy right here. Again, nice scheme on that. Not as much going on with this one as there is with the Polish glider. I do like it. Have to check out the history between the two and see which history jumps out to me more on that. Then we flip it over to the other side. We have our top and bottom profiles for our camo scheme and also the decals going on. And then we have our color callouts and decal placements for all of our ordnance and our pylons going on there. Alright, so starting off with our decals, we have a nice decal sheet here. Kind of looks like it is starting to yellow in person, so I'm going to have to put this one out in the sun if I end up using any of these ordnances. Typically I use aftermarket ordnance for my kit because they are just a little bit better, if not a lot better, than what is provided in the kits. But again, some nice decals on here. We got our wing tanks, our center tank, and they are all separately in sections, so that way you're not having questions and looking all throughout the decal sheet for a certain decal. Okay, and then after that we have our main decal sheet, and all the legends, the lettering all looks very nice on here. We do have some nice canopy decals for Major Don Kutya and Colonel Jack Broughton right here, and then the Polish glider decal does look fairly nice on here. I'm hoping that it settles down nice around that curve right there, but all the other decals look fairly nice. Definitely going to want to use some Solvaset on these because the carrier film does seem a little bit on the thick side, but not too thick on that. So just a microsol should do the trick. You won't have to go with the nuclear option, hopefully, as Walters. I call Walters my nuclear option when I'm not getting a decal to set correctly. Alright, so up first we get a bag of 5 sprues of ordnance right here, and this one is starting off with our Shrikes and our Mark 82s and Mark 117s right here, going through some nice ordnance. The Mark 117s, I might be using the Mark 117s because I don't think there is really an aftermarket option out there for the Mark 117, so we might be using those for this kit. But all the other ordnance, like the Shrikes, they do look okay, but I do know from previous use the Edward Shrikes are hands down a lot better than these Shrikes. Alright, so up next we have our vertical stabilizer right in here, and the detail on it does look fairly nice. The rivet detail, nice and recessed, nice and crisp, not too big, not over pronounced, and it just, I do know that this does take a wash very nice on here. I'm not sure, I know the F-105G vertical stabilizer is wrong, so I'm gonna have to double check and make sure that this one is correct on for the D model. We do have a little bit of flash around here, but it should be fairly easy to take care of with a quick just hit that up with a quick sand. Boom. Took me 2 swipes and it's all gone. So no real issues with that. But yeah, the detail on here does look fairly nice. I'm hoping that the camera will pick it all up. And then you're gonna have your decals on there, painted and weathered. It's gonna look really nice when it's all done. You have your rudder right here as well. Alright, so up next we had a box. This one has all the metal shafts for your flaps and slats in here, and also your rudder. I don't use these. If I'm going to have them in the up or down position, I just glue them in the up and down position. I'm not a fan of movable parts on models. Then we have a photo etch fret. This is for all of our flaps and slats right here. These are going to be going around those shafts and into the kit as well. Then we do have the film for our instrument panel right here. So that's going to look very nice when it's all painted up on the back side, and it's really going to help show up the rest of the instruments. Alright, so up next we have our rubber tires. A lot of flash around the center seam right here, and the tread on it is a little bit soft. The sidewall detail is okay, but again, I'm definitely using the aftermarket resin wheels for these, because just you see this little gash right here. I'm not sure what that is for, but the rubber tires leave a little bit to be desired for that. Then we have our rubber ammo belts, and again, you're not going to be able to see these unless you open up a lot of parts. But again, a decent amount of detail on there. But like I said, you can't see it when it's in there. Alright, so up next we have our ejection seat, and this is a shell for our seat, starting off on some nice rivet detail on here. Some decent detail for this being a 25-year-old kit. And actually, if you think about it, so it was released in 2002, but the design features and everything for this probably actually started in the late 90s, like 98, 99. We'll see about that, but for that level, for back then, I'm sure this is absolutely great. But today we do have the resin seats, and we also have 3D printed cockpit stuff as well for this. So again, nice on that. And then we have this other sprue, the seat pan, the back seat pan, some nice raised rivets on that, and then the headrest looks pretty nice. The seat cushions with molded in seat belts, they're just flat. Again, I'm not a huge fan of those, so definitely going to be using a resin ejection seat at least for this kit. Then our control stick, not much detail to that as well. Alright, so moving on to our clear parts. Clear parts do look fairly nice. We do have, on this one at least, we have a giant scratch or a crack going down right here. It's visible but not visible. Depending on the angle that you look at it, you can see it or not. We also do have a lot of flash around the edge right here. Or no, that's actually how it's supposed to be. Okay, so, but we have the connection points, the ejector pin marks right in there, or the nubs that we're going to have to take care of. So again, the clear parts do look fairly decent, especially for being 25 years old, 23 years old. So they do look pretty nice, and do a nice little polish up on them. They should look really, really nice. For your front instrument panel, the clear parts, I'm going to paint all that black, or take a look at your reference photos to see what the actual instrument panel was painted. But that one is nice, and you're going to have the film behind it along with another plastic piece there, so it's a 3-part instrument panel on that. Alright, so moving on, we have our fuel tanks and a few other bits. This is for the bomb bay right here. Fuel tanks do look nice. The plastic is a decent quality. It feels a little bit grainy, but that's okay. Just moving right along, our pylons, again, 2 pieces. a little bit of detail on them, a little bit of panel line, and a little bit of rivet detail on there, but not much on to go off of on those. So those do look fairly decent, and they should paint up and weather up very nicely. Like I said, the panel lines are nice and crisp, and they are even all the way through on everything on that. Alright, so up next we have this is a double sprue, and we have more ordnance going on with fuel tanks. We do have a little bit of mold release agent right in here, so definitely going to want to give this a nice little soapy bath before we start building and painting, but everything else on here looks alright. The triple or multiple ejector racks, they look okay, but I can honestly say the Edward MERs, they look a million times better than what these do. Just that's my opinion on that. But just everything else, I can't tell if that's flash or that's flashed on the top of the bullpup right here, and then our arm missile right here. Again, that's pretty nice on that. And then our ECM pods, they did start flying with these later on in Vietnam to help, because they were getting shot down so much. They had actually ended up putting these pods on to help jam radar sites and such. So definitely going to be using this on my when I do the Polish glider on this. Alright, so up next we have our engine sprue, or at least some of our engine sprue, and this piece is about ready to fall off. I'm going to go ahead and pull it off. This goes on the engine part right about here roughly. Again, it's another piece that you're really not going to be able to see, but you do have a fully detailed engine all the way through here, and the burner can does look fairly decent, especially for being 23 years old. So that does look okay. The fan blade grate right here also looks nice. Has some nice raised rivet detail. Again, you're not really going to be able to see that because it's really far down in the intakes, but everything else on here does look nice. Now flipping over to the other side for our actual engine area, we do have a ton of ejector pin marks in there. I mean, look at all those, and they're all raised. So those are going to be an absolute blast to take care of, because you will be able to see into this area right here. And then we have this section right here. Again, ejector pin marks on that. Pretty sure there's a piece that goes over that, but again, going to take a lot of work to get this engine to an acceptable place. Alright, moving right along, we have our tail section right here. Again, very nice rivet and panel line detail on here, as you can see hopefully with the camera. There we go. Just slightly picking it up. Really nice on the exterior detail on here. And then we have a few other parts, like this is for our intakes right here. Our wheel hubs, those look okay as well. Our nose landing gear section, a little bit of flash on it, but shouldn't be too difficult to take care of. And then on our exhaust pedals right here, some nice raised rivets on that. Hopefully the camera will pick that up. But again, nice detail on there. And then our bomb bay, typically you're going to close this up unless you want to cut up the fuselage, because it is one piece. There's not a open bomb bay section. So they have this in there, but you're not going to be able to see it. So a lot of nice detail in there, but you're still not going to be able to see it. And then this landing gear. This is, like I said, one of two major WTF moments in this kit. It is not strong, number one, and also it does have a few ejector pin marks on it. So, and this is also on the side, the ejector pin marks on the side that is visible versus on the opposite side that's going to be up against the door. So that is a question of just engineering on that point. So we got that. That's one of the one of two WTF moments in this kit. The intakes are the other WTF moment. And then our exhaust pedals, we do have a few ejector pin marks on the inside of that, so getting some putty and taking care of that, just so you don't see it, especially if you're going to have the pedals all opened up. And then on the inside of here, really not going to be able to see it, so I'm not worried about those ejector pin marks on that. But again, ejector pin marks right here as well on this, which is also, this is your parachute door right here, and a few ejector pin marks. Typically you'd have that closed because there's no detail for a parachute door or compartment underneath of this either. Alright, moving on to our next sprue, we have our parts for our gun ammo can right here. As you can see, and a bunch of other little small parts. This is for our nose landing gear compartment right here, and then the door for our Gatling gun right here. And then we just move along all the other little detail. The instrument combing, yeah, the detail on that, it just has a few curves carved into it to show a canvas to it. So definitely aftermarket for me is a must for the cockpit of this set. And then we flip it over to the other side. Not much of this. Alright, so the landing gear doors, you can see all these ejector pin marks on the nose landing gear doors as well. That's really the only part on here that you're really going to be able to see on there that will have ejector pin marks. The refueling probe bay, again, ejector pin marks, but with the refueling probe in there, you're really not going to be able to see much of it. On the cannon piece, we do have a good amount of flash on that as well, so definitely going to need to take care of that as well. Alright, so up next we have our wings and our horizontal stabilizers and flaps and spoilers and all that good stuff on this sprue. The panel line and rivet detail, like the rest of the exterior detail on this kit, absolutely amazing. No issues with any of that. It's nice and crisp, deep enough so it's going to take a wash. You don't have to worry about flooding it out when you paint. So you can see that absolutely beautiful on the rivet detail for the exterior side of that. And then we even have a little bit of detail on the upper side of the main landing gear bay as well. And the same thing with the flaps and slats with the rivet detail, and also the main landing gear door right here. And the same thing with our horizontal stabilizers as well. Now we flip it over to the other side. Let's see, you do have a few ejector pin marks on your main landing gear door right here, but the majority of it is going to be covered up by the actual landing gears. They're shallow enough to take care of relatively easy. And then we do have on our other main landing gear doors, we do have some fairly odd ejector pin marks that are surrounded by raised rivets. So we're going to have to be very careful when taking care of those, because part of the ejector pin mark is recessed and then part of it is raised. So definitely going to have to be careful on taking care of that. Everything else looks okay. The spoilers, no ejector pin marks on any of those. So on that we are safe, and we get 2 of these sprues. Alright, so before we get to the last sprue, we have our nose cone right here. It was on the last sprue, but it did fall off. We do have a little bit of a panel line right here and a little bit of flash moving forward, but it comes off with like just a quick flick of the fingernail. So no issues with that. With this, I am not sure. I know with the F-105G that the nose shape is incorrect, so I'm gonna have to do some research and see if the nose shape for this one is incorrect. But I do know that there is aftermarket sets for that available as well. This is one thing I hate about when kits, when they fall off of the sprue, is you get this nasty, you get this nasty little divot right here that's gonna have to get putty and taken care of. I mean, that is just, that's ugly right there. Alright, so moving on to the bread and butter of this kit. Alright, so our fuselage halves. Again, absolutely gorgeous rivet and panel line detail on the main body of the exterior fuselage. Very, very nice work. Your gun bay right here, no real detail to the inside of that, but you're really, with the gun in there, you're really not going to be able to see any of it anyways. And then we have the same thing on the opposite side with our panel lining and rivet detail on there. We even have a little bit of detail on the inside right here. Now, like I said, the intakes are the main down point, the main WTF moment of this entire kit. But I do know, like I said, Res Kit is in development of the intake set, and it's also going to include the main landing gear bay as well. So hopefully that solves the two issues of the landing gear and the intakes on this kit. Fingers crossed. Hopefully when that comes out, I will definitely be getting that set to give that a test on this model. But everything else on here, all right. So our cockpit, we do have a couple panels that go on the sides of here. It looks okay. The switches do look a little bit generic on that. And then we have our don't know what doors these are for. So okay, I guess if you want to, you can have the bomb bay doors open, but you just need to cut them out from here, and then you have replacement doors right here. It looks like, I can't really tell because the doors don't exactly match up for panel lines. We'll have to do some testing when we do the build, but again, I'm just going to leave this bomb bay door closed and put the center rack on here with the Mark 117s. So everything else on here, we do have our side panels for the cockpit, a little bit of switch detail on there, not too extravagant on the switch detail. So again, I'm pretty sure, like 99.9% sure, I'm going to be going with the resin cockpit for this set. We flip it over to the other side. Not much to go off, but this is the side switch panels right here. As you can see, the switches and knobs on here are pretty generic. They're just raised bumps on the kit. So alright, so that does it for the Trumpeter 132nd F-105D Thunderchief, or affectionately known as the Thud model kit. Detail, the exterior body detail on it, absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Exterior detail is top notch, especially for 23 years ago. The interior detail is where it starts to slack, where the cockpit and also with the inside of the exhaust, that's where we start to run into problems with this kit. I do know aftermarket cockpit for me, aftermarket exhaust, intakes, landing gear, and wheels will be used on this when I do this build. As for the nose, I'm not sure yet. I'll have to do some research to see if the nose is correct on this, and also the vertical stabilizer. I do know that there is an aftermarket one for GT resin that is corrected for the F-105G, but I'm not sure if there's a change up between the D and the G and F. So I have to do some research on that to see. Now for the fuel tanks and the pylons, those look okay. A little bit basic on the detail, but it should be okay. And then the bombs, we said Mark 117s, I'm pretty sure there's not an aftermarket set out for those, so I'm going to have to use the kit ones on that. And I'm definitely going to be using the ALQ pod for this build, especially when I do or if I do the Polish glider, because during that time frame they were using the ALQ pods. I don't think they're using them in 1967 for the other scheme, so we'll have to check and see, but I'm 99.9% sure I will be doing the Polish glider on this one. That's all I have to say about this kit. It does build up. When you get it all built up, the exterior detail and all, it does look very nice. It is a very impressive beast of a model. It's a lot larger than what you would think it would be. But like I said, the weak points of this kit, the main landing gear, the aft landing gear, the intakes, and also the exhaust area are the main weak points for me on this kit. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this inbox review. I want to thank you guys for watching and sticking around. And let me know in the comments on if you've built this kit before, what you thought, if you agree with everything I said, or if you have any differences in what I said, or if you also ran into any other snags, particularly with this kit as well. But also don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell button for notifications of when I post future content if you haven't yet already. And until next time, have a great day, stay frosty, and happy modeling.